Good morning out there in Bristol land. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood and I'm delighted to be sharing it with you. My name is Jessica Lay. I have been a dealer in antique and vintage jewelry and fashion for at least 30 years. I don't want to admit to anything more than that. And this is my very first webinar. Although I have been addressing audiences for many years, this is my first time not actually able to see you. So please be gentle. We're going to be talking about 100 years of fashion, and every decade has its share of issues, both societal, economic, and political. So in the olden days, a glimpse of stocking was looked on as something shocking. Now heaven knows anything goes. So Cole Porter wrote that in 1934. He died in 1964. Imagine how he would respond if he had lived another 50 years. So, the Victorian era was passing, and so were the constraints that had prevailed. Women no longer wore restrictive corsets, laced so tight some of them actually had ribs removed. Can you imagine? Ribs removed just so that you could have a wasp waist? We're going to be starting with the teens, the terrible teens. We were at war, precipitated by the assassination of Austria's Crown Prince Franz Ferdinand at Sarajevo. The short-lived restricted Hobble skirt craze, I'm sorry, excuse my lapses, getting a little tongue-tied. So the short-lived restrictive Hobble skirt craze introduced by French designer Paul Poiret was the brunt of many jokes, including the one captured on this 1912 postcard. The Hobble skirt, what's that? It's the speed limit skirt. More natural waists, slimmer skirts, and shorter hair became popular, and menswear was slightly sportier by day and a little more relaxed at night. Could you imagine playing golf in a skirt like that now? And look at those bloomers on the woman riding the bicycle. Who wears bloomers now? Now you wear latex, skin tight. The guy looks a little happier. He had trimmer trousers. So here's what men were wearing at night on the left and on the right during the day. We're into the Roaring Twenties. Meant the Charleston and jazz, red lips, cigarettes, short skirts, and long necklaces. In this decade, there were not only fashion innovations, but technical ones as well, like telephones, radios, and cars. During this period, Coco Chanel had a breakthrough with a little black dress and multi-rope pearl necklaces. Here we have a group of people at a vaudeville show wearing short skirts, long skirts, all kinds of things, very, very short tights up at the top, and looking very happy. Look at those guys with those hats on. I love them. And there they are on the street. Straw boaters, made out of straw for the summer. Snap brim fedoras, and dressed up for a day at the country club. Those striped jackets, very, very sporty. That look of the sailor look was kind of in with wearing ties around a broad collar and big broad-brimmed hats, very popular for women. Sorry. So, who wants to go back to looking like that on the beach? Actually, I wouldn't mind myself, but for you trimmer people, maybe you don't want to. So, let's go on and see what happened next. Guys wearing knee-length, actually, you know what? They should go back to them. They were much flirtier. Look at those ties on those shoes. Aren't they wonderful? We're into the Threadbare 30s. There was a return to more restrained clothing. Men's clothing followed suit. pardon the pun. The stock market crashed in 1929, followed by the Dust Bowl drought of the 1930s, were one of the worst environmental disasters of the 20th century. The combination of both of them caused a worldwide economic depression that lasted until the early 40s. Here are two extremes. In the midst of the depression, it wasn't seemly to flaunt it if you had it, but some did it anyway. And then there were the gangsters, whose apparent glamour influenced fashion largely through the movies Hollywood churned out. Did you know that there were magazines devoted particularly to racketeers and gun malls? And that Bonnie and Clyde look? Very, very, very popular. The sporting life, there again we're seeing that sailor look with the tie, and wonderful women's clothing. I think that's the first time you ever see Bermuda shorts, except that they weren't called Bermuda shorts quite then. Look at those bathing suits. My goodness, look at the prices. $1.49, $2.69, and they were made of all wool worsted. Could you imagine going to the beach now wearing all wool worsted or all wool anything? The middle one is referred to as Zephyr. That's a thinner weight wool, but it's still wool. I don't know. I wouldn't want to go back to them. I like the shapes of them, though. They're very, very feminine. Covered up a lot of bad spots, too. Into the formidable 40s. Can you share what they wear? Can you spare so they can wear it? Use it, wear it out, make do. Those were actually the key words of the next 5 years while we were at war. Our labor and our goods are fighting for everyone. It was a difficult, very difficult time. Clothing in Britain was strictly rationed, and women turned to extreme measures, such as making clothing from blackout material, wedding dresses from parachute silk, and used gravy browning and eye pencil on their legs to avoid revealing their lack of stockings. Can you imagine using gravy browning? Gravy master for your legs? Actually, I went to a Catholic school, and we had to wear stockings with seams in them. And on the days when I had runs in my stockings, I used an eyebrow pencil myself, and I would hope that the nuns didn't notice. Look at those wonderful red suede high heels with flat platform. This is the first time actually that we're seeing platforms. The skirts were a little on the longer side, so women wore platforms to raise them up a bit. And if you look at the purse down at the bottom there, that half-moon shaped purse, there was a pattern for that, and you could crochet that yourself, and there were a variety of handles that you could use. Some string ones, like crocheted ones like you're seeing there, and some were plastic rings that you could sew into a little flap. Hats were very popular, as were veils. And here's some wonderful clothing. We're seeing the broad shoulder, which, remember, it's going to come back in a little bit. But I want to call your attention to the Bakelite pieces down at the bottom. That stack of bracelets, all different colors. At the time, they were developed by through the Bakelite process, which is, as you may know now, very collectible. Back then, those bracelets were 19 cents a piece, if that, and they were very colorful and a way to cheer up your appearance during a time when things were kind of on the austere side. And if we look at that brooch with the slice of wood, fake slice of wood, and the cherries coming out of it, I have a little personal story about that. During the time that I used to do antique shows and sales around the New York area, I had that exact brooch. I was offering it for $75. This is in sort of like the middle 90s, 1995, thereabouts. A couple of aisles over, a dealer bought it from me for the $75. Actually, I gave him a $5 discount, so it was $70. He went back to his booth, and 2 hours later sold it to a retail customer for $250. I couldn't talk to him for the rest of the weekend. I was so furious. But those bracelets now are running about, for the very simple ones, about $100. For the very wonderful carved ones, more in the $300 range. But as with most of collectible anything, prices range and go up and down depending upon economic times, actually. Right now, Bakelite is back up, and for a few years in the last 10 years, it was kind of lower. But it's very collectible now. The famous Betty Grable's bathing suit photos made her the #1 pinup girl of World War II. She was famous for having the most beautiful legs in Hollywood, and they were insured by her studio for $1 million with Lloyd's of London. I wonder what they look like towards the end. And then there's Norma Jean before she became Marilyn Monroe. And down at the bottom, the not so famous in Coney Island. Wonderful looking girls. They were hoping to be Rockettes, never got there. And some post-war fashion. With the relaxing of, I wanted to go back to the extremes of in 42, the United States government passed law L-85, which set the following standards for garment manufacturing. No patch pockets, 2-inch hems, no cuffs on pants, no more than 3.5-inch yards of fabric per garment, and no metal closings. No zippers, no snaps, no hooks and eyes, because the metal was needed for the war work. Then after the war, in 1947, Christian Dior presented a dramatic change from wartime austerity styles called the New Look, showing fitted jackets with a nipped-in waist and full calf-length skirts. And this was taking it to the streets. Men who were not in one of the services continued to wear their old suits and sportswear. Snap rims, pajamas for the first time. Men were wearing pajamas that buttoned instead of union suits. Those wingtip shoes up at the top there, very, very snappy. And very, very flashy ties to show that it could be a little bit, they could sort of flaunt it a little bit. The fabulous 50s. We enter an age of prosperity. The 50s style of women's fashion leaned toward a more glamorous look. The age of flashy costume jewelry began. And if we take a look at some of those brooches, some of them are Trifari, some of them are art, some of them are, let's see, what are them? A few different companies that, Trifari. Did I say Trifari? Yeah, I did. The prices now for a signed piece of costume jewelry that people used to throw away are really rising. Again, they had hit a peak about 10 years ago. Then with that last economic downturn, the prices went down a little bit. But if you check out eBay, the prices are right back up there again. If they're signed, so much the better. The prices are much better for signed pieces than they are for unsigned pieces. And the flashier, the better. The bigger the stone, more rhinestones, very, very important. Many of you may have some of these pieces back in a jewelry box. It's a good idea to take them out, take a look at what you've got in your jewelry boxes and collections, just so that your children, when the time comes, don't sell them at garage sales for 50 cents a piece. Show them what you have. Tell them that you might have things that are worth something. And if you look over at those lucite purses on the right-hand side, there were two guys going around about, maybe 15 years ago, buying them at yard sales for $1, $2 a piece. Then they wrote a book, a guide to lucite purses, and the prices that they were setting were upwards of $400 and $500 and $600. The ones that had the carved tops were, of course, the more expensive ones. But remember, they bought them for $1 or $2 a piece, wrote a book, and set the prices themselves. It happens frequently. No surprises there. Anybody out there have one of those poodle skirts? I did, and I did wear a scarf around my neck just like that. My mom, however, looked like the ladies on the left-hand side. Very trim, always with a hat, with a veil. You never went out without a hat. Those days. And everybody's favorite heartthrob at the time, Rock Hudson, looking very much the casual male. However, other males of the 50s didn't look quite so casual. Women who went to work during the war sought jobs in offices instead of factories, and the day of the stay-at-home mom was over. Men's fashion in the 50s was based on business clothing. They dressed conservatively and were expected to wear a full suit the majority of the time. Taking off the suit jacket was frowned upon except at home, when men could relax in their white shirt and suit trousers. Poor guys. But they made up for it later. They did have bowling shirts. They did have flashy ties. A few out there did wear Western wear, and the Hawaiian shirt became popular for casual wear. And won't wrinkle ever? I don't know about that. It wasn't a very good fabric because it didn't allow for air to go through. So polyester was not terribly comfortable to wear all the time. And what people were wearing at the beach. Nice boxer trunks in all variety of styles and plaids and prints. Now we're showing the two-piece suit, a two-piece bathing suit for the first time, and capris, short shorts, and Bermuda shorts. The sizzling 60s. At the beginning of the 60s, many Americans believed they were standing at the dawn of a golden age. However, that golden age never really materialized. On the contrary, by the end of the 1960s, it seemed that the nation was falling apart. Although we had reached the moon and got there, things were not as wonderful as we would have hoped. Jackie Kennedy, Queen of American Fashion, set a standard for tidiness and trimness and sort of a class look that many women tried and succeeded at doing. That pillbox hat, extraordinarily popular. So the styles were trim, A-line, copying some of the artists like Mondrian all the way at the right-hand side. And then there was the influence of London, Biba, 1967. Long skirts, flashy patterns, big hair, starts for the first time. And long hair becomes very, very fashionable for men and for women. Styles on the beach were a little bit more relaxed, some covered up, some not so covered up, showing different parts of the bodies than women had previously shown. And menswear, a little bit more tailored, business suity, reminiscent of the 50s still, but there is that London mod look, the teddy boy look of trim pants, tighter fitted jacket for men, and longer hair. You'll see the start of longer hair. Those bell bottoms, my goodness, who wants to wear them now? Fortunately, that was it was fairly short-lived. For a few decades, encompassed as much change as the 60s, and that's reflected in the era's music, furniture, and fashion. For women, the miniskirts, tie-dye, and long flowing hair. For men, it was pretty much the same, except they wore bell-bottom pants and wide, flashy pattern ties with their business suits. By the way, all of this stuff, if you can find it in vintage stores, it's bringing big bucks on eBay. Here today, gone tomorrow. Remember the beehive? Remember the afro? Actually, the afro has come back. Beehive, not so much. But the long, straight hair is still with us, parted on the side or parted in the center. The scintillating 70s. You may notice that I like alliteration. So by 1970, women chose who they wanted to be and if they felt like wearing a miniskirt one day and a maxi dress, midi skirt, or hot pants the next day, and that's what they did. The great hemline hassle. It even made a Life cover. So, knee-high boots made out of Lycra, and I can't remember the name of that plastic, but it was not very comfortable. The platform shoe is back with us, and if you look down at that zip-up cat suit, it was one of the worst styles ever to get in and out of. Oh my goodness. Took forever to zip it back up again if you had to make a stop anywhere. Comfort stop. And the Nehru suit, influenced by possibly the Beatles. Actually, my husband had one, and he looked really good in it. Sort of like trims down the pot belly if you had one. But it was very short-lived. Too bad, because it was actually a good look. You didn't have to do much decoration. You could wear a chain with a pendant if you wanted to. Usually men wore a turtleneck sweater underneath. And what the men were wearing. Those bell bottoms are still there, but look at the shoes. Platform shoes for men, very, very exciting. And if you still have some of them in your closets, grab them out and put them up on eBay. And the sporting life. Short shorts and a crop top for her, and some kind of t-shirt for him. He didn't look as good as she did, does she? Does he? Some bathing wear, swimsuits. The bikini, of course, is back with us. Actually, it didn't leave much after the 60s. But beach skirts, little wraparound sarong look. Easy to wear over your suit when you're at the beach. And which brings us to the awesome 80s. Women's fashion was a mashup of previous styles influenced by Dynasty. Remember Dynasty? Evil women. But this time, and the power shoulders of the 40s return, this time in fabrics and colors reminiscent of the 50s and 60s. And then there was this look, punk. Actually, some of it's still around, especially the hair on not women so much, but on men. Shaved head and that faux mohawk in the front. Every so often you still see that. Big hair in the front. Wildly patterned pants, but big and bouffant up at the top, but tapered down at the ankles. And I think the style of hair that guy is wearing was called a mullet. But of lots and lots and lots of jokes. Some wonderful new bathing suits, a little flirty with that the ruffle at the front. And men lively looking, livelier than they had been. I call that the Sonny and Cher look. Don't they all look like Sonny and Cher? Very popular look then. 1984, and what are we seeing on the cover of Newsweek? The year of the yuppie. I'm sure you all remember George Orwell's 1984, and what it prophesied for the future. Well, it didn't exactly happen in 1984, but we're experiencing it now in the last couple of years with video cameras just about everywhere, documenting people in the street, traffic. If you've ever gotten a picture of your car going through a red light, you know what I mean. And by the way, if you try to argue down at traffic court about that red light and that ticket, don't bother, because there's a huge sign that says, if you have a photograph of your car, forget it. You're going to pay the fine. So a lot of what he prophesied actually has come true. Big Brother is watching us. So here's the question. Are you a hippie by night, and a pants, business suit wearing executive during the day? You could have it all. And what comes out but the Yuppie Handbook, the state-of-the-art manual for young urban professionals. I don't know if you can read what it says. I can't read from here what it says, but let me see. Actually, I still can't read it, but I'm sure you can. And we're into the nifty 90s. 100 years of denim. So it started with Levi Strauss making work pants 100 years ago, actually a little bit more than 100 years ago, and strictly work pants. Miners wore them, searching for gold up in the gold mines. Cowboys wore it, roping steers. And then it became really, really fashionable in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and it's been here with us for more than 100 years, actually. It's back, it never actually left, as you can see, for everyone, whether it's tie-dyed or acid wash, which I never could understand. Why would you wash with acid and make something look worn before you actually wore it to make it look worn? It's has another period of torn knees, where you actually tore your knees, the knees out of your pants, and rubbed them with sandpaper to make them look worn. I don't know. I don't understand that one, but it's okay. I don't have to. Some evening wear. If you were going to the clubs and the discos, this is what you would wear. Fluffy boas, short skirts, mini pants, hot pants, something very, very flashy. When the lights went on and flashed all over the room, so did you. The baby boomer comes of age and is beginning to think of retiring and what they're going to do with the rest of their life. So fitness began to be a really, really big craze. I don't show any fitness clothes because I just didn't get around to it, but hiking, golf, tennis, anything to keep younger and in fit, and which is a really good thing. Look at how happy they are. They're about to set off for a trip around, some wonderful Forest Service State Park, where they're going to see deers but not shoot them. Very happy people. They're happy too, having a new life as a rock and roll band. Whether they actually played in a rock and roll band, I don't know, but it's wonderful that a lot of today's tribute bands are staffed by men and women sort of in their 50s and 60s who meant to be stars when they were in their 20s and never got to find fame and fortune. But now a lot of the tribute bands are making their rounds around. If you catch them on Long Island, they're wonderful. Recreating music of the 70s and the 80s, and also of the 60s. Nobody looking like that in the bands yet, but maybe one day. What's happening here? There we are. The new millennium. The future seemed bright at the start of the new century. Then 3 events made it seem far less promising and far more threatening. In 2000, the presidential contest between Vice President Al Gore and Texas Governor George W. Bush, ended in a virtual deadlock, with the Supreme Court determining the winner in a disputed verdict. Then in 2001, terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon shocked the nation. So while clothes looked flashy and women were able to wear all kinds of things, tight pants and short skirts, long skirts, men had that nice relaxed look, the attitude was a little bit more constrained than had been in the previous decade. But things have lightened up in the last few years, and we have the second edition of the Yuppie Handbook. The Coach Handbag, an iPod, trench coat made by his grandmother. Oh, I love that. Swimwear looking pretty much the way it had been looking. There's no real shockers here. The famous and the not so famous. Down there is the interior of a ballroom in Brooklyn. It's actually at the Warsaw Ballroom, which was really, by day it's the Polish National Hall, and by night it's a club that features punk bands, and there they're all cheering and everybody's very happy. Up at the top, Sarah Jessica Parker in a wonderful hat, and over on the side is that, I can't remember her name, is that Bjork wearing a dress making swan-like. And introducing 2014 fashion trends. What goes around eventually comes around. Does it look very much different from what you've seen the last 2 decades? Not much. So pretty much whatever you want to do, anything goes. Short skirts, stripes if you can wear them, paisleys, solid colors. And by the way, the platform shoe is back, this time with 5-inch stiletto heels and clothing for men. I don't know if we're seeing that yet at the mall, but I love that jacket, that coat on the man down at the bottom, the faux fur, not a leopard skin, that's what that is. Where will it all end? Introducing atomic fashion. Well, we've come to the end of our fashion journey, and I'd like to know if you have any questions. I'd be glad to go back to any slide you'd like me to go back to. East Meadow, do you have any questions?
No, we don't have any questions. Thank you. Very nice presentation.
East Northport, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, though.
Okay. Lynbrook, do you have any questions?
No questions, but thank you.
Massapequa, do you have any questions?
Yes, we have one question. What do you mean by atomic fashion and how much will that cost?
Good question. Probably unaffordable by most people. And maybe made to order. Why, are you interested?
Unmuted.
Woodcliff, do you have any questions?
No, but thank you.
North Hills, do you have any questions?
Yes, what's your favorite decade of fashion?
Oh, I would say the 50s, the 40s and the 50s, late 40s when those nipped-in waists, well, not that I can wear a nipped-in waist anymore, but things that made you look feminine and flirty. Those flirty fashions, boy, they were fun. Still are. How about you?
Unmuted.
North Woodmere, do you have any questions?
I have one question. Is there one trend that keeps coming back that we keep seeing every decade?
Actually, yes. We keep seeing that 50s look keeps coming back in various permutations. So the full skirt comes back every so often. It may be short, it may be long. Broad shoulders tend to come back every so often. I haven't seen a resurgence of tie-dye, which may not be such a bad thing. But yeah, hemlines go up and down, but periodically they look pretty much the same. Westbury, do you have any questions?
We don't have any questions, but we enjoyed your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. White Plains, do you have any questions? Anybody have anything to say? Oh, okay. I want to thank you so much for allowing me to come and show you my favorite things in all the world. It's so much fun, actually, to have this information. We're in an age of instant gratification with the Internet. When it was introduced in '92, it took over all kinds of our lives. So from email to e-commerce to eBay, what would we do without the Internet? Most of these images I found by Googling, which has now entered the lexicon as a real word. It's not just Google anymore. It's Googling. I Googled, whatever. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and thank you very much for being with me today.